to Bits of Christ Surviving Prophecy, and we back at it again with another reaction video. And this time we're gonna be reacting um why Steve Nash should never won a championship. Now, obviously, Collapse, they do a very good job of breaking down different types of teams, whether it's the NFL, NBA, and figure out why, certain players or certain franchises never won a championship, or just certain players. I'll probably say players, not franchises, but I'll probably say certain players never won a championship, you know, or had a great year, and then after that, they faltered down the stretch. So obviously, we're going to watch Steve Nash and why he never became champion. Obviously, Steve Nash is an Aquarius. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, he was born February 7th. So he was basically born six days before I was. No, hold on. Yeah, he was born 6 more days. He was born six. Hold on. I'm trying to get this right. I was born on the 13th. He was born on the 7th. So, yeah, he was born 6 more days before I was. So that's pretty awesome. But anyways, man, shout out to him. Happy 47th birthday. You know what I'm saying? But we're gonna figure out why he didn't win a championship. So, without further ado, let's get into this.
Steve Nash is one of the cleverest point guards and sharpest shooters ever to walk the earth. The Canadian converted soccer player dribbled in loops and zigzags, manipulating traffic until he found space to deliver a perfect pass to a roller or an open shooter only he saw. Nash had an impeccable shooting motion, a form so rehearsed, so sturdily built.
Yeah, man, he had a very smooth shot.
One-legged runners and floaters off a spin. And he was remarkably durable in his prime.
I mean, obviously, no disrespect. No disrespect to Steve Nash. And this is the only time I'm going to pause it unless, I find something interesting. Steve Nash was a very phenomenal player, He was a true point guard in his own time, you know what I'm saying? He had Dirk, he had Stoudemire, you know what I'm saying? He had Jason Kidd for a short period of time. So he actually grew into the super teams of super teams. Everywhere he went, obviously, it was a super team. The Lakers, the Dallas, the Phoenix Suns twice. You know what I'm saying? So everywhere he went, it was just, instant, superstar team, or two-way team, if you want to call it that.
He was remarkably durable in his prime.
Yeah, he was very durable. Unless,
all these attributes made Nash a statistical marvel.
That one time when he broke his nose, he still kept on playing, so he's
three-point shooters ever and just as deft inside the arc. Nash regularly led the league in passing, racking up more career assists than almost anyone else.
I'm gonna try to do more of these.
With the production
I don't
came
know.
acclaim.
I have a few.
All NBA first team, consecutive MVP trophies, a spot in
Oh yeah, when he snuck one from Shaq.
Brilliant, renowned.
Shaq's still not letting that shit go.
Never a champion. Why? Why did his teams, some of them great and even revolutionary, never win at all?
Yeah.
How exactly did Steve Nash,
like I said, man,
retire without a title?
Untitled. Oh, it's Untitled. Yeah, there's the one. There's two of them. There's one called Collapse where they just break down their team on why they didn't necessarily repeat or try to repeat. And then there's another one called Untitled. So yeah. But I mean, like I said, man, just because you're a great player doesn't translate into a great head coach, I mean, even Mark Jackson tried it. Didn't work.
Even Nash's first short-haired stint with the Suns had some unfulfilled promise. After graduating from Santa Clara, Nash went to Phoenix with the 15th pick in the legendary 1996 NBA draft. This was a revolving door era of Suns basketball. The roster and coaching staff turned over quite a bit in just 2 years, and always in a way that put at least one point guard ahead of Nash in the depth chart. Nash rode the bench for a team that Eastern Conference champions never win at all.
You see what he was up
Exactly did
against? He was
Steve
on the
Nash, of all
bench.
people,
He
retire
was not even
without a
starting.
title?
That's crazy. Untitled. Too
Even
young, too
Nash's
soon.
first short-haired stint with the Suns had some unfulfilled promise. After graduating from Santa Clara, Nash went to
Oh,
Phoenix
look at that. He
with
went
the
up against
15th pick in
Stephon
the legendary
Marbury.
1996 NBA draft.
Yep, Allen Iverson,
This
Kobe.
was a revolving door era of Suns basketball. The roster and coaching staff turned over quite a bit in just 2 years, and always in a way that put at least one point guard ahead of Nash in the...
Look at that. He was fourth. Kevin Johnson, Sam Cassell, and Jason Kidd. Obviously, the Suns wanted to build around Jason Kidd, so they let, Steve Nash go to the Mavericks.
depth chart. Nash rode the bench for a team that certainly wasn't a contender, but nearly made some noise in the 97 playoffs. The 7-seeded Suns actually took a 2-1 series lead against the defending Western Conference
with Gary
champions
Payton.
Seattle Supersonics. And this preposterous one-footed Rex Chapman heave sent the potential clincher Game 4 to overtime. But Phoenix faltered in OT, then watched their Cinderella dreams fade in a blowout Game 5 loss in Seattle. The 97-98 Suns were something else entirely. For a moment, the revolving door spat out a very good, very fun team. Danny Ainge was head coach. Jason Kidd was the young star point guard, and Antonio McDyess the newly acquired young rim smasher. They shared the scoring with a strong supporting cast that also played tough defense. Phoenix rode a late-season hot streak to 56 wins. While veteran Kevin Johnson's health faltered, Nash got real minutes, both as Kidd's backup and alongside him. But in the playoffs, Avery Johnson outplayed both those guys, and rookie Tim Duncan led the way in San Antonio's first-round upset of the Suns. It's fascinating to imagine an alternate universe in which those Suns kept
Look at that.
What if
3
two of the
All-Stars.
best point guards ever remained teammates through their primes? What if McDyess stuck around, stayed healthy, and fulfilled his superstar potential? Alas, in our universe, the Suns wouldn't commit to 2 up-and-coming point guards. So they capitalized on the buzz around Nash and sent him to the Dallas Mavericks in a trade that brought back some picks. That will become...
And who did the Mavericks, who did the Lakers lose to last night? Conspiracy theory, right? Still, him and that, I don't know, man.
First, we got to talk about what happened to Dallas. Draft night 98 was an era-defining date in Mavericks history. They got Nash, and they acquired
So Dirk
this
got
tremendous
drafted
German
2
boy named
years
Dirk
later.
Nowitzki. After a couple seasons losing and growing up, the Mavs entered the 21st century with a new owner, an innovative coach, and a big 3 equipped to run and gun. Nash distributed the basketballs, Nowitzki flummoxed opposing
See,
big men
another
with his
big
range,
3.
Michael Finley slashed and created for himself. All could shoot.
So like I said, man, Nash was born into
Dallas
the Big
improved
3
a bit
era.
each year of the new millennium and made 4 postseasons with Nash. In 2001, they recorded 53 wins and came back to upset Karl Malone and the Jazz in the first round of the playoffs, but got rocked by Duncan and the Spurs in the next round. These 2 seasons ended thanks in large part to Mike Bibby. In 2002, Nash and Nowitzki debuted as all-star teammates. Dallas bumped up to 57 wins, swept Kevin Garnett and the Wolves out of the first round, then faced the Sacramento Kings in a 2007
Stojakovic.
semifinal.
Damn.
Nash's best
That dude was
performance in
nice
that
as hell,
series
though. I ain't
helped
gonna lie.
Dallas snatch Game 2
He had
against
one of the
Sacramento and
sweetest
thus home court
passes.
advantage. But in Game 3, Nash went ice cold. Dirk struggled against smaller Kings defenders, and Finley's 37 points weren't enough. Dallas had a chance to keep things even.
So you see why the
Sacramento's
Nets can never win a
Stojakovic had been
championship.
hurt in Game 3, and Chris Webber fouled out midway through the 4th quarter of a close Game 4.
Chris Webber is fouled out of the game.
But Bibby, who killed Dallas all series, shook Dirk on a switch.
Yeah, I actually watched that series.
And
Bibby
Dallas
carried that
totally mishandled
Kings
their winning
team.
opportunity. Then Bibby danced himself.
Like, Kings was very
to take a
favorite.
late lead in overtime,
If
and
they
Dirk's
didn't
last-second
lose to
lefty
the
floater
Heat.
went out.
I mean, not the Heat, the
Kings went up
Lakers.
3 games to 1, then wrapped the series in 5.
I mean, obviously that
And to
game was
skip ahead
totally
a bit,
rigged against the
Bibby was
Lakers.
awesome again in a first-round
I mean,
victory over the
against
Mavs in
the
2004. That was another
the Kings.
five-gamer, but it was closer
The
than
Kings
that.
were supposed to
In
win that
Game
championship
2,
that
Nash
year,
missed a
but
big late shot, then Peja Stojakovic
Weber
stripped
was
the
just
win out of
injury
a
prone.
crucial last-second possession. Nash missed a buzzer beater that would have sent Game 4 to overtime. Nowitzki missed one that would have won Game 5.
So
The
if he
Kings
didn't
advanced.
win as a player,
So that's
if he
these
didn't,
3
like if
seasons,
Steve
but
Nash
we
never,
saved the
I don't know,
best
I
for
don't want to talk
last.
over him. When Steve Nash, if Steve Nash never won it as a player, what makes you think he's gonna win it as a head coach? I'm just saying. No disrespect to him. I'm just saying, like, he just doesn't have the championship pedigree, you know? Like, at least Jason Kidd. Like, if it was Jason Kidd, then I would understand, because he's won it with the Mavericks, you know? So he knows what it takes. Why not him? But they went, what? It don't make no sense.
The 02-03
And then Dirk
Mavericks
started
ran,
getting
shot,
injured.
and limited turnovers to lead the NBA in offensive efficiency by a wide margin. And they defended pretty well too. The Mavs won their first 14
See,
straight.
again, the Dallas Mavericks had the highest efficiency, scoring efficiency in the NBA. Brooklyn Nets have the highest scoring efficiency in the NBA when they're all healthy, when they're all playing at the same time. Kind of similar, right?
games and ended with 60 victories overall.
Now, obviously, you
They got
can't compare
dangerously close to
Finland,
blowing.
Dirk, and Nash to Curry, to KD, you know, Kyrie, and, you know, but they technically they were still superstars at the time, you know, or stars at the time, I should say, not superstars, but stars.
A 3-0 series lead in the first round of the 2003 playoffs, but Dirk's amazing fourth quarter in Game 7 kept the Portland Trailblazers from making history. In the next round, Dallas got the victory they needed over the Kings. Veteran sixth man Nick Van Exel had a couple otherworldly scoring performances for the Mavs. Dirk was amazing in Game 7, and just as crucially, Weber suffered a devastating knee injury early in the series.
That dude can never stay healthy,
Derailed
dog. That
his
was his
and Sacramento's
downfall.
title hopes, although
He was a
they would
great
get
player,
there
but he can
eventually
never
with
stay
Mavs in
healthy.
04. Anyway, every NBA champion needs some fortunate breaks to get there. The Weber injury helped the 03 Mavs reach the Western Conference Finals, the farthest the franchise had advanced since the 80s. There they met another familiar foe, the Spurs, who, in typical fashion, were transitioning.
Wouldn't be
between
surprised if the
eras
Spurs knock him out.
seamlessly.
I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
This was the last season for David Robinson, the first season for a future Big Three of Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili, and, also, San Antonio won 60 games of their own. The Spurs were ridiculous, and they had just confirmed as much by becoming the first opponent in 4 years to eliminate Shaq and Kobe from the playoffs.
Wow.
And yet, the Mavs showed up in San Antonio and immediately proved they belonged. Their own Big Three combined for 86 points in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Nash outplayed the young Parker, Finley roasted Steven Jackson to take a lead in the closing seconds, and Dirk sunk a couple clutch free throws to help secure victory. That meant even after the Spurs commanded Game 2, the series scooted over to Dallas with the Mavs in control. But that first home game of the series was a disaster. Parker wrecked Nash head-to-head. Van Exel led Dallas to a first-half lead, but they squandered the whole thing and then some in the second half. And at the tail end of a deflating home loss, Nowitzki collided with Ginobili, spraining his left knee badly enough that, try as he might, Dirk couldn't play the next few games. Duncan and friends won the first Dirkless game to go up 3-1, but on the brink of elimination, the Mavs made a huge fourth quarter comeback and stole Game 5 in San Antonio. Back in Dallas, the Mavs really looked like they pushed the series to 7. Parker could barely compete because of a stomach virus, and two of Don Nelson's late series additions to the starting lineup, Van Exel and Walt Williams, stepped up their scoring to pick up a lagging Nash and Finley. The Mavs led by double digits in the fourth quarter, swarming Duncan every time he touched the ball. But Spurs coach Greg Popovich found another way to attack and swiftly sucked the life out of Dallas. First, Jackson narrowed the gap with ballsy back-to-back threes. Then he passed the sticks to Steve Kerr, the little-used 37-year-old who had already announced his intention to end his illustrious career after the season. Kerr went off, leading a 23-0 fourth quarter run with 3 3-pointers in 2 minutes.
This man has been killing it. Kerr again. Steve Kerr with another 3.
The Mavs didn't score at all.
Steve
For
Kerr is a
8
bad
minutes.
dude,
They
bro.
had 9 fourth quarter points. So Game 6 had once looked like a sure win that would
He
force
said,
a
I'm not going to be
decisive
in Michael
seventh game,
Jordan's shadow.
possibly extending the
He
series
said,
long
I'm going to
enough
win
for it
wherever I
return.
go.
Instead, the blowout
And he sure enough
inverted,
did.
and the best Mavs season of this era crashed in front of their home fans. The in-state rival went on to win Robinson one more ring before fully shifting into a new era that would hurt Nash even more. But yeah, those are the 4 Steve and Dirk playoff runs. The most promising one yielded to injury and a brutal collapse. In the final one, Nash and Nowitzki once again weren't good enough or clutch enough to beat the Kings at full strength. And after that early exit in 2004, Mavs owner Mark Cuban lowballed the 30-year-old Nash in free agency, opting to build around Nowitzki.
And ship him back to
Cuban has
Phoenix.
since described letting Nash walk as one of his greatest regrets.
Nash was just
Splitting
used
with
as a
tandem
used
would
tampon,
still
bro.
haunt Dallas
As a
if
used
Dirk
condom.
hadn't led the Mavs to a title with some old Nash friends
See?
in 2011. In any event,
See how it goes? He couldn't win. Nash couldn't win in Dallas with Dirk. So when Dirk finally won a championship in 11, he did it with the same teammates that Nash couldn't do it with. Like, that's just bananas.
Nash wanted what he was worth in the summer of 04.
And then they traded him
Accepted a
away
big new
to the
contract with his
Suns.
old team in Phoenix.
And then that's when they drafted
But this wasn't
Amari
his old team.
Stoudemire and
This
picked up
was
Sean
something new.
Marion.
Something that would raise his excellence to a whole new level. Something that would revolutionize NBA basketball. Something that, in spite of it all, would fall short of a championship. Nash was the crown jewel in a rapid rebuild that began the prior season. The Suns already had Sean Marion, the unconventional star acquired with the Dallas draft pick they got by trading Nash back in '98. They had Amari Stoudemire, the young thunderbolt who'd struck enough rims to win Rookie of the Year in '03 and was eager to rebound from an injury-shortened sophomore season. They had Mike D'Antoni, an Italian legend still relatively obscure in his home country, who'd recently been promoted to become an NBA head coach for just the second time. And once Phoenix dumped the contracts of Stephon Marbury and Penny Hardaway on the Knicks, they had room to sign Nash. While other important people came and went over the next few seasons, these 4 men formed the nucleus of a groundbreaking attack known as 7 seconds or less.
Less, 7 seconds or less. I remember that. 7 seconds or less, meaning that they score within 7 seconds. You know what I'm saying? Like their tempo, their high pitched tempo. No. They have a high efficiency rating. 7 seconds or
Wanted his
less.
small, offense-oriented lineups to race up the floor and shoot. And
Yep.
that was how fast Phoenix joined contention for the NBA championship, remaining a favorite for most of the rest of the decade. They just never won it. Some weird, shitty thing always intervened. First,
Whether it was
a broken
injuries or...
face. For a trailblazing
And I
team,
forgot they had Joe
the
Johnson,
04-05
too.
Suns were remarkably simple. A perfect harmony of style and personnel. Stoudemire could score anything inside. GM Brian Colangelo stocked the rotation with players who could score from outside. D'Antoni made that rotation sing. Off a make or a miss, Nash would sprint up the floor hunting a quick bucket. Cover that, and he'd hit Amari galloping to the rim. Cover that, and he'd find an open shooter. Try to cover all
Did
of
I
the
say Joe
above, and
Johnson?
Nash would
Maybe
gladly
I
apply
got
the
confused
dagger
by
himself.
Richardson.
In the event of a breakdown, both
I was Joe
Marion
Johnson.
and
I was
rising
right.
youngster
I
Joe
don't know why I
Johnson
said...
provided some creative scoring on top of their shooting prowess. Those two were also best equipped to guard opposing stars on a team that didn't
Yeah,
defend
Sean
very
Marion
well.
and Johnson was very good
Maybe
defensive
you
players.
didn't need to defend when you ran the fastest pace in the
Exactly.
NBA and shot the most threes at the highest
Exactly.
accuracy for the league's best
Kind of like
offense.
Brooklyn Nets, right?
Colangelo won Executive of the Year. D'Antoni won Coach of the Year, and the Suns won 62 games, the NBA's best record just a year after winning 29. And their engine, the piece that made it all possible, won MVP, a remarkable
Twice.
achievement for a former mid-major kid. The offensive machine opened the postseason by sweeping Pow J. Will in the
I mean, I
Grizzlies.
guess if you can't win a
Nash put
championship,
up
might as well
unbelievable
win the
scoring
most
numbers in the next
valuable
round against his
possession
old
in
friends.
basketball, right?
When the Mavs overcame Nash's career-high 48 points to win Game 4 and tie the series, Nash followed with a 34-point triple-double in a Game 5 victory.
Damn.
Then he stuck a huge three to send Game 6 to overtime, rebounded his pal Dirk's last-second OT miss, and sunk free throws that helped ice the whole thing. Eliminating his old friend set Nash up to rematch an old foe. The Suns met San Antonio in the 2005 Western Conference Finals, but not all the Suns, not right away. Joe Johnson had never missed a game for Phoenix until this moment in Game 2 against the Mavs, when a Jerry Stackhouse foul fractured a bone in his left eye socket.
Damn.
A quick turnaround between series meant that Johnson didn't recover from surgery in time for Games 1 and 2 against the Spurs. The league's best offense had to protect home court against the league's best defense without one of its top scorers, and it didn't go so hot. In Game 1, Nash kept up the scoring, Stoudemire was unbelievable, and veteran Jim Jackson stepped up in Johnson's place. But Marion struggled, and the big, deliberate Spurs threw Phoenix off their game. D'Antoni capitulated somewhat style-wise, playing more orthodox lineups with a true center, Stephen Hunter, alongside Stoudemire. Tony Parker led a typically excellent outing from San Antonio's Big Three, and Brent Barry's hot shooting helped San Antonio pull away in the fourth. Game 2 was more of the same. Robert Horry and Ginobili missed some big free throws to give Phoenix a chance at overtime, but Nash bricked his prayer to beat the buzzer. Even Johnson's return for Game 3 didn't help. Phoenix fell way behind and ended up losing in 5 on their home floor.
Sad.
It's official. The San Antonio Spurs are going back to the NBA Finals.
The Spurs took the opportunity to remind their victim that defense, not offense, wins championships. And
Thank you, Robert. And Robert
Joe
should know
Johnson
a thing
still
or two
believes
about
Phoenix would have
defense.
beat the Spurs and beat the Pistons in the finals had he been healthy for the start of the round. But
I doubt
he
it.
and that version of the Suns didn't run it back.
The Hawks was, I mean, the
Johnson
Spurs
wanted
was
the
just too
salary and
much
status
that
of a
year.
star, and the Suns obliged by trading him to Atlanta. Stoudemire missed basically the whole
And then he went from
following
Atlanta to
season and
Brooklyn Nets
postseason,
after
recovering
they
from
moved
surgery on
around
his knee
2010.
cartilage. And his backup, Kurt Thomas, suffered a significant injury in February. So Phoenix's 06 title hopes looked busted, but they stayed good by getting weirder. D'Antoni leaned on two-way newcomer Raja Bell, the Brazilian blur Leandro Barbosa, a couple new guys happy to just spot up outside, and the one player they got in the Johnson trade, Boris Diaw, an overstuffed French guard who D'Antoni decided to use as an undersized center because it. This team was awesome. And despite the spare parts, the Suns' reliable engine made it all work, efficiently enough to win the team 54 games and himself another MVP. The 2006 playoffs were a slog. Phoenix had to claw back from a first-round deficit against Kobe Bryant's Lakers. Tim Thomas forced Game 6 to overtime with a last-second three-pointer, and the Suns rode the momentum from that win to a Game 7 blowout. Elton Brand and the Clippers pushed Phoenix to the limit again in the next round, but the Suns took that Game 7 in another blowout, setting up a second straight Western Conference final, this time against the Mavericks. The depleted Suns just didn't have the juice for that one. When role players overperformed, Phoenix won. Diaw dropped an astounding 34 points, including the decisive bucket to steal Game 1 on the road, and Barbosa spearheaded a Game 4 victory. But in between, Tim Thomas's hot shooting in Game 2 cooled at the wrong time. He missed a couple late threes that could have improbably stacked the odds in the Suns' favor. So the series returned to Dallas tied at 2, and the Suns couldn't hang in Game 5. Raja Bell was dragging a sore calf, Nash went ice cold from the field, and Dirk played one of the best games of his life, pouring in a 50-point performance at which his old friend and opponent could only marvel. In Game 6, the Suns took a big lead but ran out of steam late. A shorthanded, overachieving squad got eliminated at home in front of a deeply appreciative crowd who knew full well the man in the suit was the key to preventing this fate next season. And indeed, the Suns didn't lose the conference finals in 07. They didn't make it that far. The 2007 Suns were a happy blend of the star-studded 05 team and the scrappy.
That's when Stoudemire really had to switch his number from number 32, from number 34 to number 1 because they had Shaq. But Shaq came off the
This
bench
team
though.
blazed through the regular
Shaq
season,
wasn't really a
handled
starter.
the Lakers in the first round of the playoffs, and got some help from afar. The Mavericks had the league's best record by a long shot, and Dirk prevented his buddy from winning a third straight MVP. But in the first round of the playoffs, Dallas suffered a humiliating, historic upset against the Golden State Warriors, a team coached by Don Nelson and bearing some resemblance to the small three happy
Jesus
Suns.
Christ.
With the Mavs toppled, a
Just,
second round
Nash is
matchup
just
between
getting
2-seed
hoodwinked.
Suns and 3-seed Spurs.
First, the coach that he had when he was a rookie was Don Nelson. The teammates that he had, that Dirk had when he won his first championship, like he's just getting. Jesus Christ! It's like they didn't want him to win the championship. Like the stacks was high against him. That's
It got
crazy.
off to a rough start for Phoenix. Duncan outplayed
And
Stoudemire.
and the worst part is he was keeping getting beat. He was keeping getting beat either by the Spurs or the Mavericks, or if it wasn't those two, it was somebody else.
Antonio and Nash.
Like he was keeping losing to this. Oh yeah, when he had Tony, but
late in the fourth quarter
like he busted his
While
nose.
the Sun staff tried in vain to patch Nash's oozing schnoz,
I seen that.
the star had to sit most of the final minute.
This thing just, it won't stop bleeding. So desperate to get back in the game.
He watched
Like he punctured a
while
damn
Barbosa bricked a shot for the
muscle.
lead. Then Stoudemire blew a chance to keep it a one-possession game in the final seconds. Band-Aid Nash helped lead Phoenix to a blowout Game 2 victory, but San Antonio won a rough Game 3 at home. Game 4 would be pivotal. Phoenix played perhaps their best basketball of the round to come back from 11 down in the fourth quarter and win the thing, tying the series at 2-all and restoring home court advantage. But that's not why it was pivotal. It was pivotal because this Robert Horry intentional foul in the final seconds looked particularly intentional to the Suns. After he hip-checked Nash into the scores table, a scuffle ensued, and in the chaos, Stoudemire and Diaw broke a league rule by leaving the sideline. They each got a one-game suspension while Horry got 2. The Suns rightfully made a huge stink about strict application of a kind of bullshit rule, but couldn't change the fact that they'd have to play a huge, tie-breaking Game 5 far more depleted than the team that started the fracas. Nonetheless, the Suns came out hungry in front of a wrathful home crowd. Nash didn't shoot well, but he helped Marion to a strong outing, while Kurt Thomas issued a gritty performance in Stoudemire's stead. This one was a defensive struggle, and a famously defenseless team with basically no bench almost won it. Manu Ginobili compared Phoenix's play to hurt animals, but his own fourth quarter excellence undid a Suns lead. Bruce Bowen, a target of fan ridicule for his dirty play earlier in the series, buried a dagger from the corner to put the Spurs ahead 3 in the final minute, and Duncan capped a great game by deterring Nash's last attempt to tie it. The Suns got back to full staff for Game 6 in San Antonio, and Amari played brilliantly in his return. But the whole Big Three showed up for the Spurs. They took a big lead into the fourth that a Nash-led rally couldn't overcome.
Spurs was just too
Nash
much.
couldn't hide his bitterness at how the series unfolded, and while giving the Spurs credit, wondered aloud how things might have gone without those suspensions. A series this important didn't deserve.
Nah, you just making excuses now.
And it doesn't make anyone
Spurs was just too loaded
that
then.
disgraced NBA ref Tim Donaghy officiated the feisty Game 3. It's always
Oh yeah,
hard
that's
to
the official that betted on the game.
into this stuff, but Donaghy later wrote the series was badly officiated, and even claimed that ref supervisor Tommy Nunez held some sort of grudge against Suns owner Robert Sarver. I don't know, but
Damn.
that Suns team might have won Game 1 if Nash's nose didn't fall off, might have won the series without.
I mean, he still played pretty good. I mean, it's not like he played poorly.
To the 07 title, just like the Spurs did. Of all the what-ifs in Nash's career, that has to be the greatest. The next season, Steve Kerr took over as GM and traded Suns lifer Marion for 35-year-old Shaq at the deadline. The Suns remained good in a crowded West, but they faced the Spurs once again in the playoffs and squandered their best chance to spark an upset when Finley's three-pointer sent Game 1 in San Antonio to overtime. Duncan, of all people, hit a 3 to send it to double OT, and Ginobili won it in the final seconds. D'Antoni did what he could to weaponize his new center, but Popovich just about neutralized the big Shaqtus
I'm a
with an
Popovich
aggressive hack-a-Shaq approach. Cactus or Shactus? Anyway, the Spurs bounced the Suns in 5,
Y'all
and
do
soon
got too many
thereafter,
nicknames.
D'Antoni left town for a job with the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
His replacement, Terry Porter, got fired in the middle of the 08-09 season as a scary Stoudemire eye injury and a downish year for Nash.
And then that's when
kept the
they
Suns
traded
out of the playoffs.
Stoudemire to the
This
Knicks.
sensational tandem was nearing its end.
Stoudemire was
They
around
snuck in
26 or
one
27
more
at the time.
legitimate title run before falling apart. The 09-10 Suns played new coach Alvin Gentry's mildly reformed version of D'Antoni ball, and they made it work. Steve and Amari got back to their best and healthiest production. Veteran Jason Richardson and mega veteran Grant Hill played crucial supporting roles, and the rest of the rotation was a mix of shooting and youth. Phoenix shot extremely well from outside and kept it up in the playoffs. They beat LaMarcus Aldridge and the Blazers in 6, then finally slayed their demons with a sweep of the Spurs in the second round. After their brief and shallow 2-year valley, the Suns were back in the 2010 Western Conference Finals, where they'd face
The Lakers.
of an old foe. The restocked, reinvigorated...
It's like they couldn't get out of their own way, man. It's like every obstacle was just
both teams held
unbearing.
comfortable home wins to bring the series back to LA, tied 2-2. And the Suns put the pressure on in the critical Game 5. They trailed by as many as 18 points in the second half, but Nash narrowed the gap in the fourth with bucket after bucket after bucket after bucket.
Nash again in the face of Gasol.
Late in the fourth, he rebounded his own miss, then the Suns retrieved another carom, then Jason Richardson banked in the game-tying shot with just 3 seconds left. Finally, Phoenix had gotten a break, and they defended Kobe's final attempt perfectly to send the game to overtime. Oh, no.
Ron Artest. So I guess Kobe didn't make all the great shots. I'm just playing.
To put back a buzzer-beating game winner. Yet another cruel finish wasted yet another inspired comeback. The Suns looked drained back at home in Game 6. They once again dug a big hole, and Kobe made absolutely sure they wouldn't climb out this time. That was it. Amari followed D'Antoni to New York in the 2010 offseason, and the Suns commenced a lengthy playoff drought. Nash's Suns were incredible, among the most stylistically pure, winningest squads ever to play the game. But in every single postseason, something tripped them up. A litany of busted body parts and weird buzzer beaters of every variety. Phoenix
suspensions, injuries. It's like
necessary obstacles. When Nash became a free agent in 2012,
he went to the Lakers.
move. The Knicks and Raptors.
See, like he was born in the super teams.
His final big contract, but Nash's people instead arranged a sign and trade to the Lakers, a very good team that hoped to win Kobe one more ring. They magnified that hope into hype after acquiring Dwight Howard. We don't even need to get into that era.
So now you know that he's never going to win as a head coach. He's a great talent, but I don't know, man. I don't know.
Because it was not even a little.
Man, people might say, well, what does this have to do with him? It has everything to do. Because if you don't have a championship pedigree, like Mike D'Antoni, he was an alright player. I mean, he wasn't great, but he was a very good offensive genius as a head coach. At least he brought something to the table. Steve Nash has nothing to offer. Nothing. You know? Like the Brooklyn Nets head coaching vacancy. Like they was trying to get Doc Rivers. They was trying to get Tyronn Lue. They was trying to get Jason Kidd. None of them want to come there, right? So their best bet was to obviously get Steve Nash, you know? And then that's when he brought in his guys, you know, Stoudemire, you know, Mike D'Antoni. So at the end, we'll see how it all plays out. But
Nash broke his leg in his second game, and his body only disintegrated further over his final 2 years. Those Lakers never even sniffed the finals, and Nash retired ringless as a player, though he'd earned himself some hardware as a consultant for the Warriors dynasty.
sure.
It's astounding and a little heartbreaking that an elite player who joined elite teammates on elite teams didn't even reach the NBA Finals.
See what I'm talking about? Now you know why The Nets will never win a championship. Just saying.
Especially given how many of those teammates went on to win without him, even at his expense. They only give out one trophy a year, and you need luck and fortitude to win it. Nash and company often lacked one or the other, falling victim to meddlesome flukes or just buckling in critical moments. But even coming that close that often...
Like I said, man, no take away from Nash. He's still a great player.
Nash was. Great. One of the greatest to ever do it.
But he just wasn't
can never,
good enough.
Take that away.
Hopefully one day they'll retire his jersey.
Check out episode 1 about
or probably not. I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, man, it's crazy. It's crazy. But like, comment, subscribe. If you want more, let me know, and I'll do whatever untitled player you want me to do. Like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other.